I think he had been watching for a while, but I only became aware of him on October 3rd. I lived alone in a ground floor apartment in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Portland. Everyone knew which houses gave out full-size candy bars on Halloween, and everyone walked their dogs at the same time every evening. During the day, I appreciated the wide windows facing the street from my flat. My living area felt larger, thanks to the abundance of natural light. However, when the sun began to set earlier in October, those windows took on a completely different appearance. Around 6:30 p.m., I was preparing dinner when I first spotted him, since my living room lights were on, and it was already dark outside. Anyone outside could see him perfectly, but I couldn't see out. I happened to notice a glimmer of movement when I looked toward the window. There was nothing except a figure standing motionless on the sidewalk, perhaps 20 feet from my window. With a wooden spoon in hand, I froze and stared back. The figure remained still, did not pass by in a typical pedestrian fashion, simply stood there. After what was probably only 10 seconds, but felt like a whole minute, I hurried over to the window and pulled the curtains closed. My heart was beating more forcefully than it ought to have. I reminded myself that people were always standing on sidewalks. He might have been using his phone. Perhaps he was anticipating someone. But for the remainder of the night, I kept the curtains closed. The following night, I assured myself that was acting suspiciously. I ate dinner on the couch and browsed through my phone with the curtains open. I had the sense at about 7:00 p.m. that moment when you can feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and you know that someone is observing you. My eyes swept across the window. He was back, just standing, the same location, the same posture. This time, I may discern a few additional details. Tall, dressed in trousers and what appeared to be a dark jacket. His face was tilted toward my apartment, but the darkness and glass obscured my ability to see his features. I carefully got up and grabbed my phone while maintaining eye contact with the window. He had left by the time I had unlocked it. There was nobody on the sidewalk. I approached the window and looked out, scanning the street in both directions. Nothing. No car driving off, no one leaving. He simply disappeared. I began to experience my first genuine terror at that point, because people don't simply vanish like that. He must have either ducked into the bushes that bordered the property or moved extremely fast and purposefully out of sight. My stomach turned at the thought of either choice. I shut the blinds once more and jumped at every little noise all night long. All of a sudden, the flat felt too quiet and lonely. I switched the television on, merely for the sound. I had seen him 4 times by October 6th constantly from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. with probably in roughly the same location, although occasionally a few feet to the left or right, continually facing my window and standing motionless. It was made worse by the fact that I had completely ceased opening my curtains after 6 p.m. determine whether or not he was present. I would imagine him standing outside in the dark, gazing at the cloth partition between us, while I sat on my couch with the curtains drawn. On October 7th, I brought it up to my co-worker. She urged that I call someone right away, but I felt foolish. Who should I call? How would I respond? On a public sidewalk, a man is standing. He was not breaking any laws. I didn't have him on my land. I wasn't in danger from him. He simply stood there and observed. Perhaps he lives close by, and that's just his habit, she suggested. Every night at the same time, some folks walk outdoors to smoke. That was what I wanted to think. Yes, I did. However, smokers are mobile. They walk at a brisk speed. They examine their phones, night after night. They don't remain motionless in front of the same window. I conducted an experiment that night. I sat in the dark of my living room, looking through a crack in the curtains, and turned off all of my lights. He would eventually pass by. He was just someone with a peculiar habit, wouldn't he? He would turn out to be nothing more than a harmless local oddity. 6:45 p.m. arrived and went. He was nowhere to be seen. I began to unwind. Perhaps he was nothing at all. Perhaps I had been putting myself through a lot. Then I noticed the motion, not on the pavement, nearer, much nearer. He was in my yard, about 10 feet from my window. half hidden by the big oak tree by the edge of the property, standing there in the dark, completely still, and although I was unable to view his face well, I was positive that he was staring at the spot where I was concealed by the curtain. He was aware that I was observing him. I dropped my phone because my hands began to shake so much. In the silence, the sound of it striking the hardwood floor felt unnaturally loud. I didn't move to pick it up, but instead of breathing, I remained motionless and watched him observe me. He retreated one step, then another, after what could have been 2 or 20 minutes. He took slow, methodical steps and didn't look back until he vanished back into the darkness beyond my yard. I didn't hear anything. Nothing, no car door, no footsteps. He simply vanished. That night, I slept with a kitchen knife on my bedside and my bedroom door shut. Not that a knife or lock would be useful, for it made me feel a little less powerless, but someone truly wanted to get in. I went outside the following day and examined the location where he had been standing. Although it didn't prove anything, the grass had a tiny compression, as if someone had been standing there for a long time. It could have come from anyone earlier. I considered relocating. I gave it some serious thought, but I couldn't afford to break my lease, which wasn't expiring until March. Besides, what if he followed me when I moved? What if he followed me when I moved? What if this was about me in particular, rather than the apartment at all? Here, at least, I was familiar with the area, knew which neighbors were often home, knew the fastest way to get to my car, and knew which doors and windows to lock. From October 9th to October 11th, I didn't see him. I felt hopeful after those 3 days. Perhaps he had grown bored. Perhaps he had been a freak who had gone on to bother other people. Perhaps my colleague was correct, and it was all some strange coincidence. Then October 12th arrived, around 5:45 p.m., when it was still light outside. I arrived home from work. Everything appeared to be typical. I prepared a sandwich for myself, got dressed comfortably, and began watching a show. The sun went down, as I had been doing at 8 p.m. I shut the blinds at 6:30. I required anything from my phone charger and my automobile. That morning, I had left it plugged into the cigarette lighter. I spent 5 minutes standing at my front door, attempting to determine whether it was worthwhile to walk outdoors. How pitiful was that? Having a fear of walking on your own driveway to your car. At last, I convinced myself to do it. It was only 20 feet or so. I would quickly leave the porch light on and return inside. Within 30 seconds. This is something I could do. The motion sensor porch light flickered on as I opened the door, lighting the driveway's walkway and the tiny concrete pad. Everything appeared safe, empty, and usual. The gravel crunched beneath my feet louder than usual in the still dark as I hurried to my car. After locking the car and retrieving the charger from the console, I turned back toward the apartment. I saw it at that moment. There was a piece of paper on my front door that hadn't been there 30 seconds ago, for sure. I'd left the door open a crack. I would have noticed paper on it, indicating that someone had placed it there in the 20 seconds I had been at my car, but I hadn't even closed it all the way because I intended to return immediately. I felt cold all over. I whirled around, looking at the shadows yards, the darker street, and the gaps between the homes. Nothing changed. Someone had been there, but no one was. I was only 15 feet away when someone left a piece of paper near my front door. I hurried back inside and locked the door after slamming it. I could hardly turn the deadbolt because my hands were shaking so much. Breathing heavily, I stood with my back to the door, gazing at the piece of paper that was now pressed against the opposite side of the wood. I needed 10 minutes to summon the bravery to open the door just enough to reach for it. It was a flyer, a typical flyer for a handyman business in the area, the sort of thing that gets jammed in mailboxes and doors everywhere locality. Special for October, 20% off of all installations of home security systems. I glanced at both sides and read it 3 times. Simply a typical flyer. However, the timing was too good to be true, was it? Do flyer people deliver on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. in the dark? That flyer was evidence that someone had been there, even if I couldn't identify who or why. so I preserved it and placed it in plain sight on my kitchen counter. Now it is October 19th. Since that night, I haven't seen him on the street. I haven't noticed anyone in my yard. No more deliveries. Everything is now back to how it was before to October 3rd. The thing that keeps me up at night, though, is this. I never disclosed to anyone the precise dates on which this was taking place. I never made a post about it, never submitted a report of any type. Therefore, how would a random handyman service know to bring a flyer promoting home security to my door at the very moment that someone had been keeping an eye on my house? Unless it wasn't really random. I still call this place home. I still draw my curtains at 6 o'clock each night. Before going to bed, make sure to check the locks 3 times. And occasionally late at night, when I'm sleeping in my bedroom in the dark, when I think about that flyer, I question whether it was a coincidence, a warning, or something else. Around 2:00 a.m. on October 18th, last night, I heard something outside my bedroom window. Only the faintest sound, perhaps a hand or fabric rubbing across the surface, examining the window frame. I listened and remained motionless in my bed, hardly breathing. A minute or so later, I heard what sounded like footsteps slipping through the grass. Perhaps it was simply the breeze. Well, it's October. In October, everything always sounds different. When I left for work this morning, I noticed one damp footprint on my back porch. One adult-sized shoe from a man placed as if someone had been standing there, peering in, right in front of the sliding glass door. However, yesterday evening it rained. Anyone could have done it. Might have come from any era. I remind myself again and over again that the fact that I moved into apartment to be on October 1st should have been my first indication that something wasn't right. The landlord had waived a standard credit check and hardly asked any questions, almost eager to rent it to me. I believed I had simply struck it lucky at the moment. I needed a place quickly after my previous roommate scenario fell apart, and the rent was affordable for the neighborhood. It was an old structure, one of those 3-story brick complexes from the 1960s that are common in the Midwest. 2 units each floor, a total of 6 units. Mine was on the left side of the 2nd floor. All old apartment complexes have that certain smell in the corridor, a combination of mildew, frying oil, and carpet cleaning, the sort of odor that affects guests as soon as they enter, that goes undetectable after a few days. Marcus was a guy who lived next door to me in 2A. On my 2nd day there, I ran into him while carrying in boxes in the corridor. He was quiet, reserved, and most likely in his 50s. When I introduced myself, he gave me a strange expression, as if he was shocked to see me, but he was still kind enough. Greeted me as I entered the building, said to let him know if I needed anything. Normal neighborly behavior. On October 4th, the first odd event occurred. Around 2 in the morning, I heard someone attempting to open my door handle. There was only the soft, mechanical sound of the handle spinning while it was being tested, no knocking. I listened while paralyzed in bed. For about 10 seconds, the handle shook softly before coming to a stop. I could not determine which way the footsteps were going because they were so soft as they moved down the corridor. I checked the door in the morning. There are no marks surrounding the lock or indications of tampering. When I saw Marcus retrieving his mail that afternoon, I told him about it. Probably someone who was intoxicated, he said, avoiding eye contact, leaving on the incorrect floor. Sometimes it does. However, we had just 6 units in a building this small. How inebriated must you be to forget which level you live on? I gave it up. Didn't seem important enough to worry about. Around 6 p.m. on October 7th, I returned home from work to discover my apartment door unlocked. Not simply unlocked, perhaps an inch or so jarred. I was aware that morning that I had locked it. I have an obsession with it. It has always been. For a whole minute, I stood in the corridor, unsure of what to do. Make a call, enter, and depart. At last, I cautiously pushed the door open while remaining in the doorway, prepared to sprint. Everything appeared to be typical. Nothing is visibly missing or disturbed. The TV remains. My laptop remains where I left it on the coffee table. I took a brief tour of the entire flat. Nothing. Everything was just as I had left it, save for the odor. Despite the fact that neither I nor the prior tenant smoked, there was a slight cigarette smoke odor. It was faint, barely noticeable, but unmistakable. All of the windows were locked when I checked them. That night, I replaced my door lock, purchased a new deadbolt from the hardware shop, and did the installation myself. I felt a little better, but not a lot better. I discovered an unfamiliar coffee mug in my sink on October 10th. I live by myself. I am familiar with my own cuisine. This mug had been used recently, was basic white, and had chips on the rim. The bottom still had a brown, dried coffee ring. I must have stood looking at that for 5 minutes or more, trying to make sense of it. I knew I hadn't, but perhaps I had brought it home from work and forgotten. Not even coffee is something I consume. I tossed it aside. I didn't want my flat to have it. I had trouble sleeping that night. I couldn't stop thinking about the mug, the unlocked door, the cigarette odor, and the fact that someone was in my room while I wasn't. I saw something via my door's peephole at around 1 in the morning when I got up to fetch water. A light was present, through the fisheye lens, only a small line of it visible at the bottom edge of my vision in the corridor. It seemed as though someone was standing directly outside my door, pointing a flashlight or phone light down. It took me perhaps 10 minutes to watch via the peephole, while I stood motionless in my pitch-black apartment, gasping for air. The light on the other side of my door remained steady, unmoving and unfading. The light finally went out. Once more, I heard those gentle footsteps as they moved away. Before leaving, I waited for 20 more minutes. I went back to bed, and that night I didn't sleep at all. Marcus was in the parking lot when I saw him the following morning. I caught him opening the door of his automobile as he got inside it. My response was, "Hey, weird question. Have you noticed anyone hanging around the hallways at night or heard anything strange?" Something strange happened to his face. Something flickered that I was unable to read. Odd how? I'm not sure. Simply someone standing in the hallway or attempting to operate door handles, etc. His hand remained on his car door, and he was silent for a long time. His voice was lower when he finally spoke. "I take it you're into B." "Yes." "Why?" "No cause. Just use caution and perhaps avoid bringing this up with the landlord." "Why not?" However, he was already shaking his head and heading into his car. "Just be careful," he said once more. He then took off in his car. Everything became worse after that talk, because it wasn't simply my paranoia anymore. Someone else was aware that there was a problem with this building and my flat, but he refused to disclose it to me. That evening, I began my research, looked up the building's address, and looked for any documents or news stories. There was nothing. No incidents or crimes were reported. The structure was merely a structure. However, I did discover something intriguing. According to property records, Apartment to Be has experienced 6 turnovers in the previous 3 years. In 3 years, there have been 6 different tenants, none of whom have stayed more than a few months. When I heard it, I was on my laptop reading this, my lock slipping a key into it. I recently fitted the new lock. As the deadbolt turned slowly, I looked in utter terror. As it unlocked, the mechanism clicked. My new lock's key was in the hands of someone. I fitted a lock 3 days ago. 2 keys were included with the lock, and they were both in my apartment. The door began to open. I exclaimed, "I'm calling 911," as I leapt to my feet and snatched the baseball bat I had begun keeping near the couch. The door stopped instantly and remained frozen at around 3 inches open. Through the opening, I could make out a portion of the corridor, but the person there was standing over to the side, out of sight. Then I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone. A voice, low and perplexed. "Apologies, incorrect apartment." The door shut. I was locked in when the deadbolt turned once again from the outside. Footsteps walked away. Before I was able to move, I stood there for perhaps 20 minutes, trembling, bat in hand. The hallway was deserted when I eventually peered out the peephole. It was 11:47 p.m. when I checked the time. I knocked on Marcus's door the following morning until he responded. He seems to have had a restless night as well. "I need you to tell me what's going on," I replied. "My apartment's key is in the hands of someone. They attempted to enter last night. After giving me a long look, he groaned and moved aside to let me entry. Even with the lights on, his apartment felt different, darker in some way, even though the layout was exactly the same as mine." Marcus said, "The guy before you," without glancing at me. "He spent roughly 2 months there, abruptly left in the middle of the night without taking the majority of his belongings. What took place? I'm not sure exactly, but a few weeks before to his departure, he freaked out and came to my door at 3 in the morning, claimed that when he woke up, his apartment was constantly rearranged, claimed to have set his phone to record as he slept in an attempt to catch the person entering. At last, Marcus looked me in the eye. He played the video for me. At night, someone would enter his apartment, stand there for a short while, and then depart after observing him sleep. Nightly for over a week, my mouth became parched. Did he spot the person? There was only a figure in the too dark video. Here's the problem, though. He paused. The man claimed that one night he kept his eyes slightly open while pretending to be asleep. He claimed that the person who entered the flat went through it as if they lived there, and this was seen through his eyelashes. Searched the closets, opened the refrigerator, and looked in the bathroom. That they believed it was still their place or that they were searching for something. What do you say? That flat may still be occupied by someone else, and I don't believe the landlord told you everything about it. I breached my contract when I moved out on October 18th, but I didn't worry about forfeiting the deposit. When I gave notice, the landlord appeared unsurprised, simply nodded, and stated that he would begin showing the property the next week. I can't quit thinking about this, though. I had to take the trash to the dumpster out back at midnight the night before I moved out since I was packing boxes. Someone was standing outside my apartment, as I returned inside and went down the second floor corridor. They were simply standing in the dark corridor, facing my door, their back to me. I stopped moving. The individual didn't look back, simply stood there without moving. "Excuse me," I mentioned. They turned slowly, and I noticed that it was a woman with brown hair and weary eyes, who might have been in her 30s. She gave me a look that I'm still not sure how to explain. Sad, yet not irate or menacing. Really, really depressing. "I lived here once," she whispered quietly. I apologize if I frightened you. Sometimes I simply forget that it's no longer mine." I heard her footsteps going down to the first floor as she passed me on her way to the stairs. Here's the problem, though. The building has just 6 apartments. By then, I had met everyone. A young man lived in 1B and an older couple lived in 1A, both of which were first-floor flats. A single mother lived in 3A on the 3rd level, while 3B was empty. The woman could not have been heading to any apartment. After she departed, I lingered outside my door for a while, trying to make sense of it. After a while, I returned inside, secured the door, and completed packing. That night, I didn't get any sleep. 2 weeks have passed since I moved out. I've moved to a new location, a newer building, greater lighting, and a different area of town. Everything is normal and excellent, with the exception of last night, when I awoke around 2 in the morning to the sound of my door handle twisting. The lock is being tested by that soft metallic rattle. Additionally, I discovered a coffee mug in the sink that I didn't recognize when I looked in my kitchen this morning. The rim is cracked and plain white. I am beginning to believe that she did not tell me about apartment to be. I believe she was warning me about something very else, and I believe I may have brought it with me. Whatever it is, brought it with me. Whatever it is. In early October, I began trekking the Redwood Trail every morning. After I relocated to Northern California for employment, it became a part of my new routine, making an effort to improve my health, exercise, and head before spending the entire day at a desk. The 3-mile circle through the forest was the ideal path. It was lovely in the early morning light, when the fog was still clinging to the trees, and it wasn't too difficult. When I arrived at 6:30 a.m., there were often 2 or 3 automobiles in the parking lot. On occasion, I would spot other hikers, primarily elderly people exercising in the morning, someone with a dog occasionally. Everyone nodded courteously, saying good morning, as hikers do. It seemed normal, secure, and similar to a community. It was on October 5th that I first saw him. I saw someone standing off the route, about 30 feet into the forest, simply facing my direction, while I was halfway through the circle at a point where the track winds around a huge fallen redwood. He had his hands in his pockets, and was dressed in pants and a dark green blazer. I initially believed he could have stopped to see something or be bird watching. However, I felt a prickly sensation on the back of my neck as I passed. After I had gone a little farther, I looked back, and he was still there, still facing the route, in the same stance. I dismissed it. Humans are strange. Perhaps he was anticipating someone. On October 8th, I saw him once more. This time, it was a different location, approximately a mile into the walk, close to the wooden bridge that spans the creek, standing among the trees, about 20 feet off the trail, in complete stillness, wearing the same dark green jacket and maintaining the same stance. This time, I was positive he was observing me, since I could see his head follow my movements as I got closer. I walked more quickly, maintained eye contact, and made an effort to appear assured and unconcerned. I gripped my phone in my pocket tightly. I told myself when I came home that it was most likely someone who was employed by the Park Service or something. Perhaps he was looking about to see if there was any damage to the trail. Reasonable explanations were offered, yet on October 10th, October 12th, and October 14th, it occurred once more, standing in the woodland, just off the track, each time in a different spot along the trail, constantly observing, never coming close, never speaking, simply standing with his hands in his pockets. Now, the dark green jacket is starting to look uncannily familiar. I made the decision to trek the trail counterclockwise on October 15th, rather than my typical clockwise path. I might not see him if I altered my routine. Perhaps he was just a hiker who happens to take rests in odd places while hiking. He wasn't stationary, because I saw him 3 times that morning in 3 separate places. He was walking along the trail through the trees, purposefully lining up where I could see him. My stomach dropped when I realized that you can't go through the woodland in silence. There are too many branches and too much undergrowth to be there waiting every time I round a corner or crossed a clearing. He had to be traveling swiftly and cautiously to pass me several times. After that, I didn't go hiking for 4 days. I promised myself that I might just go to the gym or locate another trail. However, I was also furious. Why should a jerk who wanted to play mind games force me to alter my routine? Why should he be the reason I can't have what I liked? I returned on October 20th, but I was accompanied this time. I had invited Sarah, a co-worker, to accompany me. I tried to make it seem less frightening than it actually was when I told her about the person, stated that there had been strange behavior on the trail. She was willing, claimed that she has always wanted to go trekking. He was not visible to us. Nothing the whole hike. A typical, enjoyable morning stroll through a lovely woodland. Sarah snapped pictures of the fog, discussed her plans for the weekend, and pointed out mushrooms growing on fallen logs. It was the ideal trekking experience. I began to feel foolish for being so concerned. Perhaps he was just a strange person with strange habits who had decided to bother with another trail. However, Sarah said something that chilled me to the bone as we were making our way back to our cars in the parking lot. "Isn't that the guy?" Huh. 3 spots apart from my car. She was staring at a dark green automobile. I could make out a figure sitting in the driver's seat through the windshield. Jacket, same build, dark green, with his hands on the steering wheel and his face forward. He appeared to be waiting for someone or something. I muttered, "Don't look at him," and quickly unlocked my car. "Just get in your car and leave. Should we say something?" "Maybe you just go, please." Both of us got into our vehicles. Sarah got out of the car and drove off, and I saw it in my rearview mirror. The man in the green sedan sat there without moving or starting his car. I cautiously retreated, attempting to observe his license plate, but a reflection on the plate cover blocked it out. I looked over as I passed his car on my way out of the lot. His hands were still on the wheel, and he was staring straight ahead without a word. I never returned to the trail. Began taking my morning hikes by car to a different park that was 20 minutes distant. The new trail was less remote, busier, and more open. I felt safer, although the mood wasn't as serene. It was all well for a week. I calmed down and began to believe that I had overreacted, and that the man wasn't genuinely threatening, but had simply been socially awkward or struggling with mental health concerns. Yes, we see what we want to see. Everything appears to be a threat when you're afraid. Then October 28th arrived. I was hiking in the morning as usual on my new trail, the busy one. More people than usual were there, most likely taking advantage of the fall weather before November arrived. I was enjoying the workout and buried in my thoughts when I came to a split in the road that I had never taken before. A minor route with a sign indicating overlook point 0.5 miles branched off to the right. I made the decision to look it up. The smaller track, which led up through Douglas firs to what I thought was a vista of the valley, was lovely. The trail constricted, and the woods became denser around halfway up. There had been fewer visitors this way. The trail was more overgrown and less worn, so I could tell. I heard footsteps behind me at that moment. Me. It wasn't the typical hiker sound. These were swift, deliberate, and fast-moving individuals. Like you, I moved to the side of the trail to give them space. However, as they approached, the footsteps slowed and then stopped. I pivoted. Jacket in dark green. The same guy was blocking the way back down the trail, about 15 feet behind me. He had both hands in his pockets. He didn't state anything, simply gave me a glance that I couldn't read. I could hear my heart pounding so loudly. We were by ourselves. I could yell, but up here, would anyone listen? From the main trail, how far had I come? Am I able to assist you? I attempted to sound confident and forceful. I was disappointed by how shaky my voice sounded. He simply stood there without moving or answering. I decided. I began to gently make my way back, keeping my eyes on him. I went up the route toward the overlook other than toward him. I might be able to locate more hikers or reach a more open region if I continued to go. He began to move ahead at the same speed as me, just following, not hurrying, not hostile. I said, "I need you to stop," more loudly. "I feel uneasy around you." He paused his stride and cocked his head, as if thinking about something. Then, for the first time, he spoke, and his voice was soft, nearly soft. "You took a different route." The fact that he had noticed made those 3 words, in some way, more horrifying than anything else. It indicated that he had been trying to find me. This was not a random occurrence. I spun around and took off running. I sprinted all the way up the trail, ignoring the heat in my lungs and the trees snatching at my arms. Behind me, I could hear him walking at the same steady pace, not running. He seemed to know something I didn't, as if he didn't have to rush. The trail abruptly opened up to the overlook, a wooden railing-equipped area with a breathtaking view of the valley below. Additionally, 3 hikers were standing above the railing, taking pictures. Never in my life have I been so happy to see strangers. I attempted to look natural, slow my breathing, and walked rapidly to the group. I looked back toward the trailhead. He was observing from just inside the tree line. He disappeared into the forest after walking back down the trail for around 30 seconds. An older man who hiked with me inquired about my well-being. I must have appeared to be in a panic. I assured him that I was all right, having pushed myself too hard during the ascent. He gave me some water. With trembling hands, I took it and nearly dropped the bottle. After feigning to take in the scenery for 20 minutes, I hiked back down with that bunch. Numbers and safety. There was no sign of the man with the green jacket. The parking lot did not contain his vehicle. Before getting into my car, I looked around the lot again, and I kept an eye on my mirrors the entire way home. Now it is October 31st, Halloween. It's been 3 days since I went hiking. To be honest, I haven't spent much time outside of my flat. I can't get his words out of my head. "You took a different route," It was implied that he had a certain location in mind for me. Said he needed to locate me at the new trail because he had been waiting for me at the previous one. Here's what's actually keeping me up at night, though. I kept the new track I was switching to a secret. I didn't post about it. I recently began visiting that place. How did he discover me? Then, did he come after me one morning from my apartment? Has he been observing me for longer than I thought? Is he aware of my residence? I noticed a dark green vehicle parked across the street this morning when I peered out the window of my flat, identical to the one from the trail parking lot in terms of make and model. It has now been there for 6 hours. No one is inside, as far as I can tell. There is tinting on the windows. Probably nothing. Most likely just a visitor to a neighbor. Green sedans are very common. I'm not sure if I will leave my apartment today, though. His expression at that trail fork is still in my mind. The serenity of it. The patience as if he had it forever. As if this were the start of anything but other than its conclusion. There is still the automobile. As the sun sets, I realize that I have no idea what will happen next. Since I needed the money and no one else wanted it, I worked the night shift at the convenience store on October 3rd. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. was the time frame. For evenings a week, and due of the shift differential, the income was respectable. The shop was located outside of Detroit in a peaceful area. I'm just tired, not in a bad place. The majority of the night was spent replenishing shelves and observing the late shift workers grabbing coffee on their way to factories, or the rare insomniac purchasing energy drinks. On my first night, Dennis, my manager, gave me the scoop. After 1 a.m., make sure the doors are locked. Watch them the entire time when you unlock them for consumers. Never allow 2 or more persons inside at once. Trust your instincts and keep your phone charged. According to him, if something feels off, it most likely is. Under the register, press the panic button. Typically, police arrive in less than 5 minutes. The first week was largely quiet and dull. Around 1 in the morning, I might receive 10 clients, and 6 in the morning. While I occasionally cleaned counters or faced items, I mostly used my phone. Another fixture was the panic button beneath the register. I stopped paying attention to things like the signs requiring personnel to wash their hands or the lottery ticket display. Things began to feel strange on October 12th. Approximately to 30 a.m., a man approached the door. Through the glass, I could make out a normal-looking Caucasian man in his late 20s, dressed in jeans and a grey hoodie. I unlocked the door after he pointed to it. He entered, proceeded directly to the rear where the coolers were, and gazed at the drinks for a considerable amount of time. Standing there looking at the shelves for 5 whole minutes was just too long. On the surveillance screen behind the counter, I watched him. The business was covered by 4 cameras. He continued to pick up bottles while observing them, returning them. At last, he reached for a Gatorade and approached the counter. "Just this," he murmured without looking. He made a cash payment. Precise change. However, he continued, "You're here alone," as he turned to face me for the first time before leaving. My stomach grew constricted. "No," I told a falsehood. "There's someone in the rear." He went after giving me a small smile. If he realized I was lying, I saw him cross the parking lot, get into a dark automobile, and leave. I relocked the door with trembling hands. It might have been nothing. Perhaps he was merely chatting. However, there was something about the way he smiled and inquired that made my skin crawl. Around 2:30 a.m. on October 15th, he returned. The same pattern. Went to the rear. Bought a Gatorade after spending a lifetime staring at liquids. He didn't inquire if I was alone this time, but after I paid, he lingered at the counter for a while, methodically scanning the store, if he was learning its layout. "Silent evening," he said. "Yes. Do you work every night?" I shouldn't have given an honest response, but it just spilled out. "Every night for 4 nights. Slowly, he nodded. "For what purpose?" At that moment, I began to have serious concerns. I lied when I replied, "It varies. Every week. I worked the same schedule from Sunday through Wednesday evenings." He didn't say anything more before leaving. He drove off in the same dark vehicle, and I watched. And I contacted Dennis right away, received his voicemail, stating that I was feeling uneasy because a guy kept entering and asking strange questions. Dennis responded to the text the following morning: "Have faith in your instincts. If he returns, don't let him in. You have the right to decline service." I saw him on October 17th, but he didn't come to the door. I happened to glance at the security monitor at around 3 in the morning when I was refilling cigarettes behind the counter. He was standing right at the edge of the parking lot, facing the business, at the point where the light from the store signs turned to darkness. The blurry camera footage made it difficult to see his face, but I could make out the grey hoodie. I spent 10 minutes looking at the display. He stood there without moving, approaching, or departing. When I finally had enough, I went to the front window and looked straight ahead. There was nobody in the parking lot. In the 30 seconds it took me to go from behind the counter to the window, he was gone. I jumped at every sound for the remainder of that shift, continuously monitoring the monitors and holding my phone with 911 on it, ready to dial. I didn't get much sleep the following day, but he never returned that evening. He was always looking from the edge of that parking lot when I closed my eyes. The 20th of October was worse. At 2:45 a.m., he arrived at the door. This time, however, I mouthed the words "were closed" and shook my head when I saw him through the glass. We weren't. I wasn't letting him in again, even though I was meant to let people in till 6 in the morning. He stayed, with his hands in his hoodie pocket. He stood at the door and gazed at me through the glass. Following after about 30 seconds, he rapped on the glass with one hand that was out of his pocket. 3 slow taps. Then he pointed at a $20 bill. Then, in the store, he seemed to be demonstrating to me that he was a real customer. Once more, I shook my head. He cocked his head, and I could see his countenance shift despite the distance and the glass. Either genuine kindness or the facade of it vanished. His expression became lifeless and flat. He continued to stand there and stare at me for a whole minute. He turned and left after that. This time, I did not go to a car, simply left the parking lot and vanished into the surrounding residential streets. I pressed the panic button. I have no idea why. Dennis had advised me to follow my instincts, but even though he hadn't threatened me, tried to break in, or done anything unlawful, something about the situation felt off. 2 police officers arrived. In 4 minutes, I showed them the security film and explained what had transpired. They appeared to be understanding yet skeptical. An older, grey-haired cop asked if the man had ever threatened me directly. No, but has he attempted to break in, harm any property? No, he gave a nod. See, I understand. Although Guy is being creepy, there is little we can do about it legally. He's permitted to visit a store. In a parking lot, he's permitted to stand. We'll have a unit drive by more frequently on your shifts, he said, apparently noticing my face. Additionally, call right away if he becomes hostile, makes a genuine attempt to enter, or threatens you. We'll take care of it. They departed. Knowing that they will be passing by more frequently made me feel a little safer, but also powerless since the police officer was correct. In reality, what had the man done made me uneasy. Was standing in a parking area. They are not offences. He returned on October 23rd, but his strategy had altered. He approached the window, put his face to the glass, and waved at me rather than approaching the door. Then, with the screen facing me, he held up his phone. It had large fart lettering on it. I just want to talk. I retreated from the window and shook my head. After standing for a while, he typed something else and raised the phone once more. You're alone? I know that. My heart was thumping violently, making sure he could see me. I reached for my phone and dialed 911. He observed me before grinning slowly and purposefully. Something else, something that chilled my blood, not a warm smile. Then he turned to leave. He had long since left by the time the police showed up. 6 minutes later, they claimed they will increase patrols after taking my statement and rewatching the video. However, it was evident to me that they believed I was exaggerating. Maybe he has a crush on you and doesn't know how to talk to people. One of them actually stated, that was meant to be consoling. You know, I requested a shift swap from Dennis. He couldn't promise anything, but he said he'd try to figure something out. Everybody desired days. No one desired evenings. My last night shift was on October 28th. Not because Dennis found someone else or because I stopped. Due to the events of that evening, approximately 1:30 a.m. the electricity was cut off. Not only in the shop, the entire block became dark. The street lights were out, as I could see through the windows. There was no traffic signal at the corner. Everything, the only light in the store, was the flashlight on my phone. Lock the door and wait for the electricity to return or for morning personnel to arrive, whichever occurred first, according to emergency regulations. I tried not to panic. I stood in the dark behind the counter, unlocked the door. The security system's backup battery would continue to record the cameras, but without power, I couldn't see the displays. With the exception of what I could see through the windows due to ambient moonlight and the faint beam of my phone flashlight, I was practically blind. I heard the tapping at that moment. The entrance door taps 3 times, as slowly as previously. My flashlight was aimed at the door. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his face expressionless, wearing a grey hoodie. For what seemed like an age, we gazed at one another through the glass. Then he went out of my line of sight, walking down the storefront to the side of the building. I heard footsteps. He was moving about the structure. I was aware that the windows were protected and that the back entrance was locked, but panic was settling in. I dialed 911 once more and explained the situation to the dispatcher in a whisper. Units were on their way, she added, but they were going to a possible accident at a junction first because of the numerous calls triggered by the power outage. The sound of footsteps ceased. There was silence. I tried to see everywhere at once, while standing in the dark with my phone flashlight sweeping across the shadows. Minutes went by. 5, perhaps 10. Where had he gone? Then I heard it. From above came a scraping noise. From the rooftop, there was a large object being pulled across the store's flat roof. Back and forth, like a person who is pacing or seeking access. A padlock was used to secure the store's roof hatch, which was used for maintenance. It was meant to be. Anyway, the scraping ceased. Once more, silence. The light from my flashlight was going out. The phone's battery is at 15%. I listened while standing motionless and gasping for air. With lights flashing and monitors flickering to life behind me, the power abruptly returned. I whirled around and anxiously checked the screens. The store's interior is empty. The front lot is deserted. The building's side is vacant. The back lot is deserted. However, a dark object was seen close to the edge, heading back toward the access ladder. On the roof camera that we had pointed at the HVAC units, I was unable to discern specifics, but there was no doubt that someone had been up there. Police showed up 10 minutes later. They inspected the roof hatch, and the surrounding area. Everything was safe. No indications of manipulation. It was probably just an animal I had heard, the officer added. A raccoon, perhaps. Raccoons frequently climb onto roofs. However, grey hoodies are not worn by raccoons. Raccoons don't stand in parking lots and watch you all night long, nor do they tap on doors in predictable ways. When Dennis arrived that morning, though I had completed my shift, I informed him that I was done working nights. I would either work days or quit. He agreed to switch me after noticing how shaken I was. 4 days have passed since then. I currently work day shifts from 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. since then. I haven't seen him. Marcus, a 6'3" former military man, is the new night person. He seems capable of taking care of himself. Given what had been going on, Dennis reasoned that it was a safer option. Here's what I can't stop, though. Contemplating, Marcus missed his 3rd consecutive shift yesterday due to illness, declared that he would not return, refused to explain why, despite Dennis's offer of a raise, stated that he was finished. Look for another person. Additionally, I spotted a new recruit that I haven't yet met yesterday around 10 p.m. while I was closing and waiting for the night person to arrive. My stomach dropped when I saw something in the parking lot, at the edge of the lot. When the light turns to darkness A dark sedan of the same make and model is parked. I didn't need to see inside, yet I couldn't. I departed before to the arrival of the next night person, didn't hold off, simply gathered my belongings and hurried to my vehicle. Whoever it is, they begin tonight. Additionally, I wonder if they will see him standing at the parking lot's edge at 2:30 in the morning. If he approaches the door, then make 3 taps. If they'll figure out what he wants before it's too late. Or if they'll make the same mistakes I did. I have no idea what he desires. What scares me the most is that, the power outage, the moments I was by myself with my back to him, and the roof access were all possibilities for him. There was something he could have done. However, he didn't. He pretended to be studying as he watched and waited, as though he had a strategy. Whoever is working tonight, I hope, is more intelligent than I was, since I believe he is still out there, waiting, and not finished. I hope they follow their instincts from the beginning. In an effort to save money on gas, I joined the carpool on October 2nd. It took me 45 minutes each way to get to the tech campus outside of Austin, so it made sense given the rising cost of gas. There was a carpool matching system in place at the company. You invested your schedule and address, and it connected you with neighbors who had comparable work schedules. I was paired with 3 other people, Linda, a man named Aaron, and Derek, who was driving for the first week. Aaron and I were on the same team. Although Derek and Linda worked in different departments, we all resided in the same suburb, just a few miles apart. It was a routine first week. Derek obeyed traffic restrictions, drove a Honda CR-V, and played an PR in a calm manner. Linda talked about her children. Aaron was relatively silent as he browsed through his phone in the rear seat. That week, Derek and I shared the front passenger seat. Normal carpooling activities. Every week, we switched up the drivers. The second week was my turn, followed by Linda's and then Aaron's. I noticed something right away when it came to Aaron's turn in the 4th week of October. His vehicle was pristine, almost unnaturally so, tidy. He said it was a 2019 yet. It was a silver Camry that looked brand new. With the exception of one pine-scented air freshener, there was no garbage, no coffee stains, and no personal belongings. As Linda climbed into the back seat, she remarked, "You really keep this thing clean." Aaron remarked, "I like things organized." His tone was lifeless and bland. He pulled out after adjusting his rearview mirror. Compared to Derek, Aaron drove more aggressively. He would take turns more quickly than needed, brake late, and accelerate forcefully. It was just enough to have me clutch the door handle a couple of times, but not dangerously. Linda also took note. She was bracing herself against the seat when I caught a glimpse of her in the side mirror. "You okay up there?" On the 3rd day of Aaron's driving week, Derek asked me. I was jammed against the door after we took a turn. Yes, but not utilized to the manner of driving. Aaron ignored this, maintaining a neutral expression while keeping his eyes on the road. Things started to get strange on October 24th. Aaron abruptly drove off the highway at an exit we had never taken before, just as we were about to reach the office. Linda asked from the back, "Wrong exit," Aaron said. "Shortcut. Construction is coming up. It's quicker this way." However, there was no building. I looked at my phone. The highway was clear, according to the traffic app. I turned to look at Derek in the rear seat. He was frowning as he looked at his phone. Aaron passed a residential neighborhood with fewer homes and smaller streets. Instead of going toward the office, we were going away from it. My stomach began to churn. Trying not to speak, I added, "I think we should get back on the highway." Aaron, informal. "We will arrive late." "This is quicker," he said again. The same flat voice. We continued to drive in quiet for 3 more minutes. Now the houses were completely gone. We were on a country road with no other cars and trees on either side. In my lap, my hand went to my phone. Derek continued in a louder voice. "Aaron, really, we need to turn around." Aaron turned into a gravel turnout after slowing down. I had a racing heart. It was this. We were with someone we hardly knew in the middle of nowhere. Whatever this was, Aaron shifted into park and turned to face us. He still had no expression on his face. "There's a deer." He pointed to the front, and the deer, perhaps 50 feet in length, was standing in the center of the road, looking straight ahead at us. It bounded off into the trees after a bit, did not wish to strike it. "We can return now," Aaron remarked. He drove us to work after turning the car around, traveled the typical path, complete with highways. We arrived 10 minutes late. For the remainder of the drive, no one spoke. Later that evening, Linda mailed a message to our group chat for the carpool. "Hey, can we just take the standard path going forward? In the mornings, I have a strict regimen." Aaron answered right away. "Yes, I apologize for it." However, something had changed. Aaron picked us up as usual on October 25th, the next morning. This time, I took the back seat. I wanted to get away from Aaron, so I switched with Derek, desired a mediator between us. I noticed Aaron was constantly adjusting his rearview mirror about 20 minutes into the drive. It wasn't as if he was looking for traffic. He had it tilted toward me. Every few minutes, I would catch him looking straight at me in the mirror before he adjusted it again. "Your mirror okay?" At last, I inquired. His words, "It's fine," and made the quick adjustment once more. He left it angled directly at me this time. For the remainder of the voyage, I could see his eyes observing me in that mirror. Linda also took note. Her worried expression caught my attention. She looked between Aaron's eyes in the mirror and mine. She pulled me aside in the parking lot when we started working, saying in a low voice, "That was really uncomfortable. The mirror thing, yes, I agree that we ought to find an alternative carpool. However, if you wanted to leave a carpool, you had to go through the process again, get reassigned, and go through a waiting list. It seemed like overreacting, and it might take weeks." He had used a mirror to look at me. "It's not illegal." Perhaps he was simply one of those persons who stares at you too much. That's the case with certain folks. Aaron sent me a friend request on Facebook on October 27th. We didn't have a social media friendship. We had maintained a very professional carpool. I didn't accept or reject the request. I just let it sit there. He sent me a message on Facebook Messenger that afternoon. "You are still able to send messages even though we were not friends. They just open a folder that has been screened." I saw that my friend request was not approved. I didn't answer. After 10 minutes, together, we are carpooling. Felt that we ought to be in contact. I haven't replied yet. Displayed the messages in our group chat to Linda and Derek. Derek claimed to have received a friend request as well, but chose to ignore it. Linda claimed she'd declined hers, and Aaron had sent it again. Linda said, "That's it," throughout the conversation. "I'm finished. I'm asking a fresh carpool arrangement today." Derek concurred. I did, too. Every one of us requested to be reassigned. According to the system, processing would take 5 to 7 business days. October 28th. The energy in the car was different, yet Aaron picked us up as if nothing had happened. Tense. We didn't engage in small talk. Both Linda and Derek were using their phones. I gazed out the window. Aaron talked about halfway to work. I am aware that everyone asked for new carpools. Quiet. How was that known to him? The requests were intended to remain confidential. "It's where I work." He spoke as if he could read my thoughts. I saw the system process the requests. From the rear seat, Derek remarked, "That's a violation of privacy. Just letting you know. That wasn't necessary for you to accomplish. You could have spoken with me if there was an issue." "We're no longer comfortable," Linda replied, her voice trembling a little. "Nothing is personal." Aaron gripped the steering wheel more tightly. "What are you uncomfortable with?" "I haven't taken any action." He was correct. In theory, he hadn't gone off course, checked himself in the mirror, or added friends. On paper, none of that was dangerous, but taken as a whole, it seemed wrong. "We've been uncomfortable with you." "That's enough," I responded. Aaron remained silent. It remained quiet for the remainder of the drive. He parked when we arrived at work and sat there as the three of us got out. I observed him staring straight ahead with his hands still on the wheel and his jaw tight as I closed my door. It was Friday. Erin sent me 17 Facebook messages over the weekend. I could see the preview text even though I didn't open them. They began to apologize. If I caused discomfort to anyone, I apologize. Then perplexed. I'm not sure what I did incorrectly. Then irate. You folks are really suspicious. I was attempting to be amiable. Messages had ceased by Sunday evening. He was blocked by me. Our final week of carpooling before the reassignments went through was scheduled for Monday, October 31st, Halloween. However, Erin failed to show up. After a 15-minute delay, Derek took us all in his vehicle. We assumed Erin had simply stopped attending, and we were okay with that. I used it at work to find out when our new carpool allocations will be finalized. The woman I spoke with was perplexed. On Saturday, Erin decided not to participate. He's not in the carpool program anymore, she replied. Your requests have been cancelled. Without him, the three of you can carry on together. I felt a wave of relief. He had left. The issue has been resolved. Then she uttered something that chilled me to the bone. In fact, it's strange. Additionally, he made a transfer request to your department and team. This morning, it was authorized. He begins on Tuesday. I thought I had been struck in the stomach. He will be joining my team. Yes, it appears that he specifically asked for the desk next to yours, claimed that you two got along well, and that he wanted to work with you more. She grinned without realizing. Isn't that nice? Does anyone on your team have a carpool buddy? I was unable to talk, so I simply nodded and left after a few days. That afternoon, I gazed at the vacant desk beside mine. The desk that would begin running errands tomorrow, sitting 3 feet away from me for 8 hours every day, 5 days a week, no longer able to flee in the car, but always present at work. I reflected on his communications, the way he had observed me in the mirror, the detour through deserted roads, and the way he had viewed private carpool requests that he shouldn't have had access to. Despite blocking him, I received one more Facebook message. 4:30 p.m. apparently. He made a new account. Only 3 words. I'll see you tomorrow. I visited HR before I left. I tried to explain the problem as calmly as possible. The woman took notes and listened, but her face seemed doubtful. She said, "Has he threatened you?" "No. But has he made inappropriate physical contact with you, sent graphic messages, or participated in any other activity that goes against our harassment policy?" Simply put, it's the transfer, the friend requests, the observing, and the pattern of conduct. Requests for friends are not illegal, and employees are free to ask for transfers. She became a little softer. Look, I know you're uncomfortable, but we can't deny you a transfer because someone made you feel uncomfortable by carpooling and using social media. Report him right away if he does anything at work that is inappropriate, and we'll take action. I felt powerless as I walked out. All of Erin's actions fell into this grey area, where they were improper, but not yet actionable, unsettling, but not illegal. It is currently 11 p.m. on Halloween night. Sitting at my apartment, I'm trying to make up my mind. I could resign and get another work, but why should I? I've done nothing incorrectly. Just now, my phone buzzed. A message from an unidentified number. I'm eager to work directly with you. Even though I know that carpooling didn't work out, I anticipate spending a great deal of time with you. I've been observing you, and I have no doubt that we will make excellent companions. Let's meet at 8 a.m. Avoid being late. I gaze at the message for an extended period. I then use Google Maps satellite view to find my address. I can see my apartment building clearly. The parking lot comes into focus. In the visiting areas, a silver Camry is parked. Erin's model is the same. Since I arrived home 3 hours ago, it has remained there. When I pulled in, I saw it, but I didn't give it any attention. Glancing down at the parking lot, I made my way to my window. There's still the Camry. And even though I'm on the 3rd story and it's dark, I can still make out someone waiting in the driver's seat. Once more, my phone buzzes. The same unidentified number sent another SMS. I see that your light is on. You ought to sleep. Tomorrow is a big day. With my heart pounding, I pull back from the window and draw the shades. However, I still sense it. Someone is down there in the dark, watching, waiting for morning, and staring up at where they know I am. And I have to sit next to him or work in 9 hours. In October, I began dog walking as a side gig to supplement my income. It was simple thanks to the app. When they needed someone to walk their dog, people in my neighborhood would post. I'd take the job, collect their house keys lockbox code, and be done. A 30-minute walk costs $20. After my regular job, I could work 3 or 4 hours a day and earn a respectable income. Professionals who put in long hours made up the majority of my clientele. I would enter vacant homes, pick up the dog, take them for a walk, return them, and leave a letter stating that everything went smoothly. Easy. The owners and dogs both adored it, and I made money while exercising. Sarah, my third customer, resided in a brick ranch home with a fenced backyard 4 blocks away from me. Cooper, her golden retriever, was amiable, well-trained, and around 3 years old. She needed walks Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5:30 p.m., according to the app. On October 6th, I went for my first walk with Cooper. I shouted for the dog, opened the front door, and entered the lockbox combination. Cooper bounded over right away, waving his tail. The house was clean, tastefully appointed, and unimpressive. After putting him on a leash, we took a stroll around the neighborhood. I returned him, filled his water bowl, and departed. Simple. Over the following few weeks, I think I went for a dozen walks with Cooper. The same pattern each time. The house was never occupied. I never saw Sarah, and her car was never in the driveway. She consistently posted 5-star evaluations with remarks like "Cooper loves his walks" or "Thanks so much," even though we only interacted via the app. It wasn't until October 26th that something seemed strange. I allowed myself entry as normal, but when I called, Cooper didn't show up. I searched the home for him and discovered him whimpering on the floor of the master bedroom. He appeared frightened. "What's wrong, buddy?" I dropped to my knees beside him. He was shaking. I looked him over for injuries, but I found none. Perhaps he had heard a loud noise that frightened him or eaten something that made him feel nauseous. Sometimes dogs are frightened. I made the decision to forego the stroll and simply spend some time with him to check on him. Using the program, I sent Sarah a text. Cooper appeared alarmed or distressed. I have no idea what happened. Remaining with him for some time, she answered right away. "Is he injured?" "It doesn't appear to be. Simply behaving oddly. All okay. I appreciate you remaining with him. Go slowly." For around 20 minutes, I sat on the floor with Cooper, stroking him and having quiet conversations. After a while, he relaxed and even gave a slight tail wag. He appeared to be mostly back to normal by the time I left. He had been acting strangely, but at the end, he seemed all right. I noted in my notes. I came on October 28th for my weekly Wednesday stroll. This Cooper arrived when I called, but he was nervous. Continued to gaze back at the corridor leading to the bedrooms. We went outside once I had tethered him, but he kept dragging himself back toward the house as if he wanted to get home early. Unlike him, he typically enjoyed taking walks. As soon as we returned, he went straight to the master bedroom and lay down where he had been lying, monitoring the entryway. I sent Sarah another text. "Cooper still appears nervous. Are things going well at home? Are there any changes that could be causing him stress?" This time, it took her several minutes to respond. "Nothing has changed. However, I have been working late a lot lately. He might be lonely." It made sense. Dogs have separation anxiety. If it would help, I informed her, I could perhaps go for longer walks or stop by on days when I didn't have to work. She promised to give it some thought. Friday, October 30th, I used the lockbox code, opened the front door, and called for Cooper after arriving for what I assumed would be a typical walk. He never showed up. He was back in the master bedroom when I came through the house. But this time, he was sitting motionless in front of the closet door, gazing at it. Sitting there, motionless, looking, not whimpering, not lying down. "Come on, Cooper, friend. Come on." He remained still, failed to acknowledge me at all. I approached him and gave him a back rub. Even though he was shaking once more, he continued to gaze at the closet door. The hairs on my neck stood on end. There was something really unnerving about the way he was obsessed with that closet. I glanced toward the door. Only a plain white closet door shut. Nothing noteworthy. Cooper, however, was behaving as though something was within. I made a foolish move. I should not have, I know. I didn't live there. Wasn't my concern. However, I felt compelled to find out because of the dog's actions. I opened the closet door. The closet wasn't unusual. Shoes on the floor, storage boxes on the shelf, and clothes dangling from the rod. Nothing out of the ordinary that would frighten a dog. However, I observed something strange as I stood there observing it. The back corner of the floor had a void, as if something had just been relocated. The carpet was perhaps 3 feet by 2 feet and slightly crushed. Additionally, there was a subtle yet noticeable chemical odor, similar to that of cleaning supplies, but stronger. At last, Cooper took a step. He pressed against my leg, turned his back on the closet, and wheezed. We hurried out when I shut the closet door. That day, I only took him for a single walk around the block before heading back home. I left after he immediately went to his bed in the living room and cuddled up. Sarah wasn't texted about it. What could I possibly say? There is a strange odor coming from your closet, and your dog is afraid of it. That sounded crazy, but I couldn't get it out of my head that night. Regarding Cooper's actions, the condensed carpet, regarding the chemical odor, I found Sarah's address on the county property records website. It was non-intrusive and merely public data. Sarah Whitmore bought the residence 14 months ago. On social media, I looked up her name, discovered a secret Facebook profile. A woman in her 30s with blonde hair and a regular smile was depicted in the profile picture. I have no idea why I continued to dig. There was a sense of unease. I looked up her name along with the name of the city and came upon something that made my stomach turn. A 16-month-old local news story from before she purchased the home. After a hiking expedition, the woman's spouse went missing. It was a brief article. In October of last year, 34-year-old John Whitmore went trekking alone and never came back. When he did not return from a weekend excursion to the mountains, his wife, Sarah Whitmore, filed a missing persons report. The search and rescue was successful. Not a sign of him. There were no leads, but the case remained open. I spent a lot of time looking over the article. October. In October of this year, he had vanished. Sarah also purchased a new home 2 months later. A home where the closet in the master bedroom now made her dog frightened. I was being silly, I told myself. Individuals disappear on excursions that involve trekking. It occurs, and following terrible experiences, many purchase new homes. Perhaps she saw too much of him in their former house. Perhaps she needed a new beginning. The conduct of the dog might have nothing to do with it. There are many reasons why dogs behave strangely, but I couldn't get rid of the sensation. Halloween is on October 31st. I received a notification via the application. At 8 p.m. that night, Sarah had asked Cooper to go for an additional stroll. I know it's last minute, but I have to work late again. The message read, "Would you be able to take a walk in the evening? I'll pay twice as much. For 30 minutes, double salary would be $40. I ought to have declined. Ought to have come up with an excuse. However, I had no valid reason to decline. So I accepted, because I needed the money. I pulled up to Sarah's house at 7:55 p.m. Unusually, there were no porch lights on, and it was dark. For a Halloween, the entire neighborhood was decked out. Pumpkins, inflatable ghosts, and faux cobwebs. But there was no light at all in Sarah's home. Not a single light or adornment. I saw the lockbox with the flashlight on my phone, took out the key, and opened the front door. The interior of the house was also dark. I phoned Cooper. No answer. There was no dog paw noise on the hardwood floors. Nothing. I turned on the door's light switch. Nothing took place. Turn off the power. However, the lights were on in every house nearby. All of my instincts were telling me to get out as I stood in the dim foyer. However, what if Cooper required assistance? What if there was a problem with him? I proceeded gently through the home using the flashlight on my phone. The living room is deserted. The kitchen is vacant. There was no one in Cooper's bed. I made my way to the master bedroom down the hallway. The glow of my flashlight pierced the night. The door to the bedroom was open. Inside, I shone my light. Cooper was sitting in the same stiff position, looking in front of the closet once more. However, the closet door was open this time just a few inches, but open nonetheless. I was aware that I had previously closed it. "Cooper, come here," I said, whispered. He remained still. I entered the room with a trembling light in my hand. Through the opening, I could see only the edge of hanging garments and blackness in the closet. Then it came to me from the closet. A sigh. It's not dog breath. Deliberate, slow, and human. I took off running. Didn't seize Cooper. Didn't shut doors. I simply fled that house as quickly as I could, with trembling hands that made it difficult to insert the key into the ignition. I climbed into my car and closed the doors. For a while, I sat there attempting to make up my mind. I was alone in someone else's house when I heard breathing in a closet, so I called 911 and reported it. They would believe I was insane. I watched the vehicle pull into Sarah's driveway at that point. I didn't identify the vehicle. Someone left. A woman, but the darkness made it difficult for me to discern her face. Reaching the front door, she unlocked it and entered. All the lights in the house came on. It buzzed on my phone. Sarah sent a message using the app. "I apologize. I forgot to call off the walk when I arrived home early." Cooper was seen acting strangely in the bedroom once more. "In any case, thanks." I gazed at the message and then at the now lit house. I could see Sarah walking around the living room through the front window. Cooper was beside her, wagging his tail, and seemed quite normal. Did I see the breathing? Was that the dog, or was my imagination deceiving me? However, I was aware of what I had heard, and that the closet door had been shut. Her message went unanswered by me. I tried to tell myself that I had overreacted as I drove home. Sarah sent me another note the following morning, November 1st. "Hey, I understand that last night was strange, but are you free to go for walks the following week? Cooper genuinely cares for you, and I believe that regularity would ease his nervousness." I spent a lot of time looking at the message. I then used the app to block her and stop dog walking in her neighborhood. I can't quit thinking about this, though. On my way to work this morning, I passed Sarah's residence. By chance, I took that path. The backyard next to the fence was being dug up by a landscaping business, large-scale project. The dirt was heaped high. As I went by, I reduced my speed. Sarah was standing in the yard, pointing to the ground while speaking to one of the employees. As I passed by, she glanced up, and our eyes briefly locked. She waved and smiled, natural and welcoming. Cooper, however, was in the house's window and was not observing her or the employees. He was observing me, and I could see that he was shaking even from the street. What was in that closet is unknown to me. I have no idea what they're uncovering in the backyard. I'm not sure whether John Whitmore has been located or is still missing. However, I am certain that I heard respiration in that closet. Furthermore, I am aware that Cooper recognized the problem long before I did, and occasionally in the middle of the night, I question whether I was meant to return that evening. If it's 8 p.m., the purpose of my stroll request was to place me in that house at a certain moment, in that dim bedroom. Perhaps I should have been the one to discover anything or fail to discover something. I constantly getting Sarah's profile recommendations from the app. A local client is in need of assistance. Cooper needs a walker, it says. She keeps asking, but I keep saying no. And that chemical is still on my mind. Fragrance, the sound of breathing in the dark, and that rectangle in the carpet. Who else will take the job, I wonder? Who else will take the job, I wonder? At an auction on October 7th, I purchased the contents of storage unit 247. For almost 6 months, I had been doing it, reselling anything that was inside, attending storage auctions, and placing bids on apartments when renters stopped making payments. Furniture, electronics, collectibles, and occasionally plain garbage can be found. I had made a respectable amount of money, but it was a chance. There were hundreds of units in a large, climate-controlled building on the outskirts of Sacramento, where the auction was held. 247 was full, as I could see when they opened it. Stacked to the roof were boxes, chairs, and what appeared to be filing cabinets, the kind of unit that gave the impression that someone had put their entire home or business in storage and never returned. My bid of $320 won the bid. Despite being pricey, the sheer amount of items made the risk feel justified. I had 3 days to get everything all cleared away, which was commonplace. I took my truck over that afternoon to begin going through everything. The unit, which measured 10 by 10, was even more packed than it had appeared to be at the auction. I began dragging boxes out into the hall so I could start going through them. It was mostly uninteresting, outdated equipment, business paperwork from a consulting firm, old tax documents, nothing of value as of yet. I had only read maybe 25% of it, though. Around 5 p.m. something caught my attention. Photo albums were in a box in the back, heavier than the others. I looked through them. Pictures of the family, primarily from graduations, holidays, and birthday parties. Among them were 2 adolescent children, a woman of around the same age, and a man who appeared to be in his 40s. Typical family matters. The pictures, however, ended suddenly. Lastly, the album was just halfway done, and the last images were taken in October of last year. Blank pages next. It seemed strange to me, but I didn't give it much thought. When digital photography became popular, people stopped constantly taking physical pictures. I was more disturbed by what I discovered in the same box beneath the albums. Approximately 200 pages of a black leather journal that is nearly entirely handwritten. Last year's January 3rd was the date of the first entry. I'm aware that I wasn't supposed to read it. My property was not it. Legally speaking, it was now, but I was still intrigued, and it felt like a privacy invasion. In the center, I turned to a random page. October 15th. I am aware that someone has visited the house. Tiny objects moved. The living room chair is oriented in a distinctive way. The one that, even though I was positive I had locked the kitchen window, it was unlocked. I can sense it, but Rachel believes I'm being crazy. We're not home, and someone is entering. I felt my stomach clench. I turned the pages back a bit. The 8th of October. Today I discovered another one. The same spot, same pattern. I've begun taking pictures and documenting everything. This will be proof in the event that I am harmed. Eventually someone will listen. Even if the police don't, I turned over. The 22nd of October. I'm unable to rest. All sounds are like footsteps. Rachel seized her mother's house with the children. I'm having a breakdown, she says, and I need help. I'm not insane, though. The things I've seen I know. I've anticipated it. October 27th marked the end of the entries. The final one simply stated, "It's tonight. I'm aware of it. I am prepared." With this journal in my hand, I sat in the corridor of the storage unit, my heart racing. How had this individual fared? Flipping to the first page, seeking a moniker, on the inside of the cover was the text property of David Chen. I looked up David Chen's Sacramento on my phone, produced thousands of results. The name is widely used, was added to the search as missing, not important. October and the year were added. There is still nothing tangible. I continued searching in the apartment for extra background. I discovered other document boxes, one of which contained mail, was sent to David Chen at a suburban address in Carmichael, which is roughly 20 minutes away. Each of the postmarks was from more than a year ago. I still question whether the choice I made was wise. I arrived at the address via car. It was a typical one-story home with a for sale sign in the yard, located in a peaceful neighborhood. The lawn was dark, and the windows were overgrown. Sitting in my truck across the street, I stared at it, unsure of what to do. A dog was being walked by a woman on the pavement. When she saw me sitting there, she looked at me suspiciously. I lowered my window. "I'm not being creepy. I apologize," I responded. "I'm just, do you know what happened to the people who lived here?" She paused, still cautious. The Chen family. More over a year ago, they left. For what reason? I purchased their storage unit at a sale. I was just wondering about them. She looked different. More melancholy. Less suspicious. The entire situation was awful. David suffered a mental breakdown. Began saying they were being stalked and that someone was breaking into their home. Acquired incredibly suspicious. After a while, his wife and children left. David also moved away, as far as I knew. Since then, the house has been uninhabited. Has there ever been an intruder? Was he correct in any way? She shook her head. Not that I am aware of. He just doesn't know, I believe. Sometimes, people just lose it. Stress at work, perhaps. He had a tendency to be intense. After thanking her, I returned to the storage facility by car. However, something was off, as she had put it. Tragic. How they had sounded in the journals. Really scared, but not insane. The following day, I cleared out more of the unit, discovered other records and proof of a typical existence that had inexplicably collapsed. David's consulting business contracts, children's school assignments, a box of kitchenware, and everything else you might expect from someone who packed up their lives quickly. The pictures were then discovered, although not in an album. These were hidden in a filing cabinet drawer, loose in an envelope. The screenshots were printed from what appeared to be security camera footage. There are timestamps in the corner, and the night vision is blurry. In the first image, the inside of a residence, unoccupied. It appeared to be a living room. Timestamp to 47 a.m. on October 12th. In the second picture, the room and angle were the same, but a person was now standing in the corner. A dark silhouette that faces the camera. Timestamp to 51 a.m. on October 12th. I looked at the other pictures. Nights and rooms vary, but the pattern remains the same. A room was empty, and then someone was standing there. It was always in the corner, facing the direction of the camera. Depending on the timestamps, it can be for a few minutes at a time or more than an hour. The date of the previous picture was October 27th. There were two figures in the living room, the same space as the first one. One in the corner, as usual. One that was right in front of the camera, close enough to allow you to see its features. It's a man, not David. I had seen enough pictures of him to be certain. Another individual. Additionally, he was presenting the camera with something. Apparently, it was a key. My hands were shaking as I looked at that picture for a long time. Then I saw a writing on the reverse side. Key to the front door. How did he acquire it? I tried to think about this while sitting on a box. Had these pictures been authentic, David wouldn't have been suspicious. In reality, someone had been breaking into his house every night while merely observing. They had a key, too. Why didn't the police take action, though, if it was genuine? What caused his wife to depart? Why did everyone believe that he was experiencing a breakdown? I gave the office of the storage facility a call, asked if they had David Chen's contact details, who had rented flat 247 before. According to the woman on the phone, they had sent letters to his last known home when he stopped paying rent in March of this year. But she was unable to provide that information, but got no reply. How do I get in touch with him? He could be interested in some personal items I found. Our letters arrived. However, as I mentioned, I can provide you with the mailing address we have on file. She told me the address of the vacant house in Carmichael. Dead end. I was in my garage that evening, October 9th, going through all of the unit's boxes, looking for anything of value to sell. I'd kept the photos and journal apart, unable to decide how to handle them. At approximately 11 p.m., I heard my dog barking. She stood at the rear entrance, her hackles up, gazing into the shadowed yard. The light on the back porch was switched on. Nothing can be found there. Her barking continued. After calling her, I opened the door. She declined to attend, just continued to bark at an invisible object. At last, using a flashlight, I went outside and looked around the yard, which was deserted. However, I felt overwhelmingly that I wasn't alone. That entity was observing, just out of my flashlight's field of view. After locking the door, I returned inside and escorted my dog into the bedroom. No way to get rid of the feeling. I discovered something the following morning that chilled me to the bone. A picture on my porch, lying face down. I lifted it and flipped it over. A printed screen grab from a security camera was what it was. The living room of my house. Last night's timestamp is 11:24 p.m. and a man stood in the corner, just discernible in the shadows. I instantly looked at the footage from my security camera. I had put cameras on the inside and outside 6 months prior. The recording from yesterday night was pulled up. My living room camera revealed nothing out of the ordinary. There was no figure, no intruder. Even though my living room was vacant when I was in the garage, someone had snapped a picture of it with something added and put it on my doorstep. My acquaintance who works in IT security was the one I called. Sent the picture to him. After an hour, he gave another call. He said, "This is photoshopped, well done, but it's undoubtedly phony. Someone added that figure to an actual shot of your home space. You got this from where?" I described everything, including the diary and the storage unit. For a while, he was silent. "Someone seems to be playing tricks on you, man. Someone who knows David Chen might be attempting to maintain his paranoia or whatever. Or perhaps you shared what you discovered on social media, and someone found it amusing to frighten you." I hadn't spoken about it previously, neglected to post about it. He was likely correct, though. A prank, of course. The timing was simply strange. He said, "Trash it, avoid becoming involved." That's their desire. I tried to forget about the picture, tossed it away, and over the course of the following week, I sold the majority of the items in the unit. Books, gadgets, and furniture generated a profit of roughly $600. Not bad. However, I retained the notebook and David's original photographs. I kept them because of something. I stored them in a box in my wardrobe. Later, I would decide how to handle them, I promised. Now it is October 23rd. I got home from work at around 6 o'clock last night. Again, my dog was behaving strangely, continued to complain and retreat, refusing to enter the living room. I had a look at the security cameras. Not a thing. Then I became aware of something. My living room chair was facing a different way than when I had left it. I'm positive of it. I keep it pointed toward the television at all times. It turned to face the corner now. I looked at the footage from the daytime cameras. It's not quite visible from that angle. A blind area exists, but it is at 17 p.m. I was at work when the chair moved a little, like if someone had brushed against it. There was nobody in the house. On my porch this morning, I discovered another picture. The same fashion. This is my living room. From last night's timestamp. Someone in the corner. It was nearer the camera this time, though, in close enough proximity to observe it was male. Unable to distinguish features, but certainly a male. And this time, I didn't recognize the handwriting that was written on the back. There was no David in Unit 247. For a while, I gazed at that message. I next took out the documents pertaining to the storage facility and examined the rental agreement that was auctioned off. Even though David Chen was listed on the contract, I couldn't help but investigate more closely. It appeared as though someone had attempts to replicate someone else's handwriting were unsuccessful. I gave the management the rental agreement, drove to the storage facility, and asked to speak with the manager. Can this signature be verified in any way? To verify that this apartment was indeed rented by David Chen. After examining it, he checked his computer. He looked different. It's strange. The signature we have on file is not this one. Unit 247, according to our information, was a man by the name of Michael Torres rented it. It has been 3 years. How about this? Indeed, it is still in operation. Paid as of this now. The rent is current. My jaw dropped, but it was put up for auction. It was purchased by me. He began typing quickly, seeming bewildered. I don't. For 247, there is no record of an auction. Are you certain that the unit number you have is correct? I gave him my receipt. Unit 247. As clear as day. He gazed at his screen and then at it. I don't get it. Although we didn't auction 247, this receipt is on our letterhead. That day, we put 274 up for auction. I knew I hadn't written down the correct number, but is it possible that you did? I'd vacated unit 247. Someone had needed the items, and I had them in my garage. I had been granted access to that unit by someone. Gave me the impression that it was an auction. Forced me to remove David Chen's possessions. Can you show me unit 247? Quietly, I asked. Together, we strolled to it. He opened the door and unlocked it. It was deserted, utterly devoid. The concrete floor is clean. Nothing more. It has been this way for months. According to him, Torres rents it out, but doesn't keep anything in it. That's what some folks do. Make an investment out of it or something. My head was spinning as I stood there looking at the vacant unit. Where had all that material come from? This unit was empty. In what location was it kept? How was it made available to me? Michael Torres was who? In a few days, I drove home. My garage door was open when I arrived. Never do I leave it open. The storage unit's boxes were all gone. Each and every one. Only my usual belongings remain. However, David Chen's journal was open to a page I had never read before, and it was resting on my workbench. I eventually discovered where he keeps everything, all of his study on us, all of the pictures, and all of the proof near the end. On October 26th, the number of his storage unit is 247. Someone needs to inspect it in case I get hurt. Someone must be aware of his plans. Below that, it was written in a distinct handwriting style with more current ink. You now know as well. Storage was never used for Unit 247. It was used for hunting. This is being written from a hotel. An hour ago, I took my laptop and my dog out of the house. I'm not sure if my paranoia is similar to David's. I'm not sure if those pictures are authentic or not. My living room chair keeps moving, but I have no idea who Michael Torres is or why he would want me to locate David's belongings. Those pictures were left on my porch, and I know it, and I am aware that in October, David Chen was afraid of something. Now it's October once more. Just now, my phone buzzed. A message from an unidentified number. You are possible to rent storage unit 247. Do you want to watch it? I'm looking at that text, and everything I David's final journal post is something to consider. All set, he wrote. But what are you prepared for? What is David Chen's current location? I'm not sure if I should reply. I have no idea if David was ever located, and I'm not sure if I'm the next one or if I'm just another person being observed, researched, and ready for something I can't yet see. Once more, the text notification buzzes. Tonight is the watching. The same time as previously. I'll be in the corner, waiting. I'm not leaving. I am unable to. However, I have a horrible feeling that it is irrelevant because it's possible that Unit 247 never existed. Perhaps it's a number or a classification in someone's system, and perhaps I've been involved all along. On October 4th, I saw the camera installed on my neighbor's second-story window, pointing straight at my front entrance and driveway. One of those contemporary security cameras with a red light that blinks and a broad lens. After 3 years of living here, I hardly knew my neighbor, Glenn, late 50s, single, computer savvy, and constantly with his shades drawn. I counted 5 cameras over the course of the following several days, all of which were set up to watch my property other than his. One Saturday, I knocked on his door. He cracked it open, chains still in place. Hello, Glenn, from next door. I'm Mike. My residence appears to be the target of your cameras. Could you change them? He gazed at me. They are aimed toward the boundaries of my property, recording any intrusion, invasion. I'm not. Your fence is 3 is going too far. In my yard, your tree loses leaves. I am recording all of this. He shut the door. October 12th. A printed picture was in my mailbox. That morning, I got into my car, captured via Glenn's camera. The timestamp, 7:47 a.m. Just the picture, no note. I knocked once more. His voice came through the door. but he did not respond. Evidence of delivery. The 12th of October, 7:47 a.m. recorded. At 2 a.m. that night, I peered out the window of my kitchen. In Glenn's home, all the lights were on. He stood motionless in the window on the second floor, looking right at me. We looked at each other. He simply gazed without moving or responding. Another picture arrived in my mailbox the following morning. At 2:13 a.m., I was at my kitchen window. However, this view was taken from my own yard at ground level. In the middle of the night, he had been outside my house. I dialed the cops. They said he was in my yard without providing evidence. All they could do was speak to him. After speaking with him during their visit, the police advised me to install my own cameras because he appeared straightforward. Glenn stood in his window as they were leaving, taking another picture of me with his phone just in front of me. The flash blew up purposefully. After that, the pictures arrived every day. Each of these activities, taking out the trash, checking the mail, and watching TV via my window, has a timestamp. On October 16th, I set up cameras. I recorded Glenn standing at the property line at 1:34 a.m. that night, staring out my bedroom window for 11 minutes. He was not on my property, but he was observing. He did this twice every night, always between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. My mailbox lock broke on October 21st. At noon, my camera captured Glenn pulling it open, peering inside, and then leaving contented. I began a case with the postal inspector and filed paperwork, but it would take time. At 11 p.m. that evening, Glenn's home was completely dark. He got into his car and drove off around midnight. My back camera picked up movements around 1:15 a.m. Had Glenn in my backyard. I'm looking up at my bedroom window 10 feet from my back door. I watched him on camera and dialed 911. It was 4.5 minutes before he moved. Then he left in a composed manner. Seconds after he vanished inside his home, police showed up. They went to speak with him after viewing my video and confirming the trespass. He denied all of it, claimed that the video needed to be modified. Deepfake technology. Cameras are no longer reliable. They had to catch him in the act before they could arrest him. I discovered a picture on my porch when I got up on October 24th. I'm pictured in my bedroom, asleep in my bed. It was viewed from the corner close to the ceiling. The time is 3:47 a.m. 4 hours prior. I frantically looked around my room. Nothing, no cameras, no forceful entry was discovered when the police arrived. No one was entering, according to my security. Could it be that you're harming yourself? And cop asked thoughtfully. That evening, I stayed at a hotel. I returned on October 26th to get close. Patricia, my neighbor across the street, gestured for me to come closer. She claimed to have seen your friend Glenn enter your home yesterday, approximately midday. He had everything, including a key. I felt sick to my stomach. A key was in Glenn's possession. He went inside after unlocking the front door. I spent perhaps 20 minutes there. I changed all of my locks right away after realizing my cameras were Wi-Fi and linked to my Wi-Fi. Glenn was a computer worker. He had the option to hack them, delete out his visits, and loop footage. I purchased a new system that had local, rather than wireless, storage for my video. I saw it at 1:22 a.m. that night. The opening of my front door. Glenn enters and makes his way upstairs through my living room. While I stood at the bottom of the steps, I picked up my baseball bat and dialed 911. His footsteps and the opening of drawers were audible in my bedroom. He saw me when he came to the top of the steps, appeared irritated rather than shocked. You switched cameras, he observed coolly. The documentation didn't provide that. Leave my house. I'm recording patterns of behavior. You're interfering with the research. Which study? He lowered himself a step. I lifted the bat. He came to a halt. October is always the same. Subjects are at their most vulnerable during that time. Over the past 6 years, I have documented 17 households. You are number 18. Police sirens sounded. Glenn glanced back at me, and then toward the door. This one isn't finished. Next October, I'll have to start anew. He passed me and disappeared into the darkness. 3 houses down, The police apprehended him. In his pocket, I discovered a key to my old locks. They discovered hard drives filled with pictures and movies when they searched his home. Spreadsheets with 17 additional addresses. Accessing the encrypted hard drives would take months. Glenn simply repeated unfinished documentation without speaking. He grinned when questioned about the other 17 households. 12 of those addresses were now deserted homes. Estate sales brought new owners to 3. There were 2 vacant lots. 4 days have passed with no update from the police, despite their stated investigation. The date is October 30th. This morning, I'm 3 towns over at my sister's place. I received a package. No address for return. There was a picture inside. I slept in my sister's guest bedroom at her house, written on the back. Taken from the room's corner last night. Research keeps going. The new location has been noted. October 31st. A last observation is planned. The location of the camera is unknown to me. I'm not sure if Glenn has a partner or was granted bail. I'm at a diner writing this from my car. I haven't slept. I'm not sure where to go. Those 12 deserted homes, those 3 estate sales, those 2 vacant lots, and the 17 earlier records. Just now, my phone buzzed. A known figure. Avoid running. It complicates the documentation. The 31st of October, 11:59 p.m. One last thing to note. You'll comprehend then. I don't know what will happen once the paperwork is finished, and I have 9 hours till midnight. To supplement my income, I drove 3 evenings a week for a ride-sharing service on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 7:00 p.m. until 2 a.m. except for those returning home from late shifts or bars. The majority of passengers were fine. Around 10:30 p.m. on October 8th, I picked up Lauren. Parking lot of a shopping center, 20 minutes away. She entered with a strained expression. "Thank God," was uttered right away. "Would you please let us go?" She continued to look through the rear window behind us. "Can you take a different route?" she requested after 5 minutes. "Not the highway." I agreed because of something in her tone. Instead, I chose side streets. She eased up a little. She leaned forward 10 minutes from her destination. Behind us is a white vehicle. How long has it been there? I looked in the mirror. Not in my opinion. Why? Would you please turn around? I pivoted. The sedan also turned. Lauren's respiration accelerated. It's following us. Please turn again. I made a left turn. The sedan came next. My pulse quickened. Are you familiar with the vehicle? Please just take me home. Quick. I took rapid turns and sped up. The sedan did not leave us. The same distance. Not falling back, but not getting any closer. I'm just following. Do I need to call the police? No. Get me home, please. Inside. I'll be safe. I arrived at her residence. Before I had completely stopped, she leapt out. Hold on until I enter. Make sure nobody is following me, please. Half a block back. The white vehicle had pulled over. The headlights are on. Lauren hurried to her door and entered. A light switched on. After 30 seconds of sitting, the sedan turned around and drove away. Lauren left a $20 tip and 5 stars. I appreciate you protecting me. On October 11th, 3 days later, I received another request. Same passenger, same pickup, same destination. She appeared much more anxious when she entered. I appreciate your acceptance. I recalled your name. Is everything all right? Can we take the back roads once more? I said. Is someone bothering you? While we were driving. A long silence. He doesn't believe it's over. My ex. Occasionally follows me. He hasn't told me where yet, but I'm now staying with my sister. Have you filed a report on this? It's not easy. He hasn't committed any crimes. Simply follow me. Appears in several locations. Nothing that I can demonstrate. If it helps, I would be pleased to drive you on a regular basis. Really? That would be incredible. I drove Lauren 6 more times over the course of 2 weeks. Always tense, always the same path. The white sedan was never seen by me again. At 11 p.m. on October 24th, she asked for a ride. She texted me, back of parking lot near dumpsters. When I got there, hurry up, please. I took a car back. Lauren and a tall, black-jacketed man in his late 20s was standing by the dumpster area. They were conversing. He approached a white automobile that was parked close by as I pulled up. Lauren jumped in right away. "Proceed. Go, please." The sedan instantly began to follow. "Is that him?" He did indeed find me. I have no idea how. She trembled when she spoke. "Get me home, please." The vehicle drew alongside us after remaining close. Faceless, the man drove parallel. Then, right in front of us, he braked hard and accelerated. My brake smashed. He came to a complete stop, obstructing traffic. I turned around. He also went backwards. "What is he doing?" Lauren took hold of my arm. "I apologize. I was wrong to lie to you." "What was the lie about?" He exited and came over to us. Lauren refused to look. "Secure the doors." I secured them. Her window was knocked on. "Lauren, we must speak. You can't run forever. Get out," she yelled. He gave me a weary, dejected face. "I apologize for dragging you into this, but she must accompany me. People are trying to find her. She's aware of the reasons behind her refusal to accompany you. Make a police call. Kindly inquire about Lauren Mitchell with them." Lauren's hold became more firm. "Don't pay attention to him. He's telling lies." But I hesitated for a moment. I typed our city's name into Google to find Lauren Mitchell. In the fraud case, a woman is wanted to be questioned. The 24-year-old Lauren Mitchell and wanted for interrogation in connection with a fraud scheme that duped elderly victims out of more than $200,000. I turned to face Lauren. She was crying as she gazed at my phone. "It's not what it appears to be," she said. He knocked once more. "The families of the victims recruited me as a private investigator. She must surrender herself. You're not her former partner. 2 weeks ago, I met her for the first time. She continued to use the same driver. She made a mistake." I had trembling hands. "Is this accurate?" She didn't respond. "Please keep her here for me." 5 minutes out for the police. Lauren sprang for the exit. I took hold of her arm. "Don't let me go, please. You'll get money from me. Anything you desire." I am unable to. Then a dark SUV drew up behind us, and I saw 2 men stepping out. They were also observed by the investigator. His face shifted. "The police aren't that. Who is it?" Lauren stiffened. "Oh no," she said. "The people I stole money from. I'm not supposed to speak to the police." "Lauren," a man shouted out. "Account settlement time." The detective sprinted to his vehicle. "Take a drive. Leave this place." I sped up and swerved around his vehicle. More quickly than previously, the SUV followed. "Where am I heading?" "I'm not sure." "In a public setting." At midnight, I headed downtown in the direction of bars that were still open. Lauren quickly texted them to say, "I'll return the money. Everything." We turned onto Main Street. I came to a stop in front of a packed bar. After us, the SUV arrived. Lauren said, "Get out. This is not a car you want to be in. How about you? My mess is this." She exited and made her way to the SUV. I got out even though I should have stayed. "The phone is prepared to dial 911. Lauren approached the window of the driver's car. They conversed. I was unable to hear. She was crying and nodding. She climbed in when the passenger door opened. The SUV took off. Down Main Street, Lauren in the back seat vanishes. The detective arrived. Was she taken? She voluntarily entered. "That's it," he vowed. "Either they will receive their money, or he will not finish. Give me a call if you hear from her." After giving me a card, he walked away. 6 days have passed. It is now October 30th. Lauren has not gotten back to me. Her profile vanished from the application. Nothing, no arrests, no bodies, no press reports. However, I received a transportation request from a fresh traveler last night. I had been dropping Lauren off at the same spot, the same pickup place. A young, blonde woman, perhaps 20 years old, entered. "Many thanks. It's been really difficult for me to get rides from here. Your sister's house is at that address." She appeared perplexed. "No, I'm a resident." "Why?" I also had another traveler who visited that location, claimed it belonged to her sister. "What time was this?" "A few weeks prior." Lauren was her name. She showed me a picture on her phone. Is this her? Lauren was the one. Yes. It isn't Lauren. Emma is that person. She's without a sister. That's my home. I live by myself. She hesitated. Well, until Emma moved in without my permission 3 weeks ago. I did. Claimed she had to hide. For a month, I received $2,000 in cash. My blood froze. 5 days ago, she departed. Grabbed my extra car keys, some cash, and my laptop in the middle of the night. She gave me a close look. Did she get hurt? She and a few others got into a car. I have no idea where. Slowly, and perhaps for the best, she nodded. She was mistaken for those individuals. They weren't being playful. I assumed it was her sister's house, so I drove her home to the same residence where I dropped Lauren 8 times. I have no idea what I was involved with now. I'm not sure if Lauren is still alive. I'm not sure whether I aided her or the individuals pursuing her. I received a ride request this morning from a customer I had never previously drove. Please pick me up from the shopping center. The message added, I'll be by the rear door. I'm in dire need of a trustworthy person. My ex is pursuing me once more. You were suggested by a friend. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. is the pickup time. Sarah is the passenger's name. The request is awaiting my response in my app. Additionally, Sarah will be at that parking lot in 4 hours. Furthermore, I still haven't made up my mind about showing there. Parking lot in 4 hours. Furthermore, I still haven't made up my mind about showing there. In October, I began going to open houses as a weekend pastime other than to make a purchase. I wanted to see how other people lived, but I couldn't afford the prices in Seattle. Agents and free entertainment didn't care about browsers. On October 12th, from 100 p.m. to 400 p.m., the residence on Maple Street was open for inspection. Craftsmanship. In 1924, 3 bedrooms were constructed. It was to 30 p.m. when I arrived. Strolled about after signing in. I saw a man standing in the corner of the master bedroom upstairs, facing the wall, mid-30s, dark blue jacket, hands in pockets, standing there without looking at anything. I said, interesting wallpaper. He didn't glance at me, but he did move his head slightly. That kind of thing. His tone was lifeless and bland. I went on. He was gone by the time I returned. I visited another open house across town on October 15th. Different agent, different neighborhood. The identical man stood facing the wall in the corner of the second bedroom. Same posture, same jacket. Hello. Did you attend the Maple Street open house? Perhaps. Do you frequently attend these events each week? Recording. What is being documented? He didn't respond. I asked the agent about him when I went downstairs. She appeared perplexed. The upstairs is empty. Together, we ascended. There was nobody in the room. On my way, I looked over the sign-in sheets. Out. Both places have the same name. Rowe, David, October 19th. During a Ballard open house. I located him once more. The same corner position in the third bedroom. What are you recording? I inquired. Gaps. How they feel and how they're set up. For what purpose is it important? For when it occurs once more. What occurs at what time? He looked at me for the first time when he turned completely. His eyes were frighteningly intense. October. Houses recall this bedroom throughout this month. 3 years ago. Someone passed away here. October 23rd. I was chilly. How are you aware of that? I keep records of everything. He produced a notebook with small handwriting in it. House 47 for the month. October events are found in 32. Violence, disappearances, and deaths. The houses recall. That isn't feasible. Obituaries and public documents are all available. He walked away from me. I looked up the address on my mobile device. Discovered a 3-year-old article. In Ballard, a woman, age 67, was discovered deceased. The address matched October 23rd. On October 22nd, I searched online for David Rowe and came across a profile with an address I knew. That day, there was an open house. At 2 p.m., I drove there. A dilapidated area with small bungalows. No cars were outside, but there was an open house sign on the grass. The door was not locked. The place was deserted. Nothing, no furniture, only empty rooms with a mildew odor. There was writing on the wall in the corner of the master bedroom upstairs. A list of dates and places in black marker, all of which are October dates from the previous 5 years. Beside each, undiscovered, violence, death, and disappearance. In newer ink at the bottom, October 29th. This house has not been found. October 22nd was 7 days away today. The sound of footsteps on stairs. There was David in the doorway. Calmly, "You shouldn't be here," he remarked. "You listed this as an open house." "No, I didn't. This is where I keep my documents and where I live." He showed me a picture of his unmarked front yard, taken with his phone. "You had been following the pattern. Therefore you wanted to come." "Which pattern?" "Houses in October. October activities. At the first one, I noticed you. You gaze at areas as though you're looking for something." He approached the corner and made contact with the wall. October 29th. "This residence. This is where something should happen. I've been following the trend for 5 years. Deaths and disappearances in particular homes on particular days. Next up is this house. No, houses don't make predictions, record. In some form of reality, the events have already occurred. The houses recall. Those memories come alive in October." I turned back to the door. "I have to go. You will return on the 29th of October. The draw will be felt by you. Everyone who should be here will show up. It operates that way." I hurried home and got into my car. I checked the address. The property is vacant. No listings. In 2019, the last owner passed away. October of 2019. My open house apps were erased. David's profile was blocked. However, I couldn't stop thinking about that list. I checked each date individually. They were all real. There was always a death, a disappearance, or an unexplained event on October. I received a text message from an unidentified number on October 28th. "The residence on Laurel Street at 3:00 p.m. tomorrow. You'll be there. Everyone will." It was blocked by me. However, at 2:15 p.m., hence it on the 29th of October, this draw must travel to that residence. I didn't actually decide to drive there. I'm currently 3 blocks away in my automobile. To 4:47 p.m., there are more cars coming. Converging on the vacant house are people I know from previous open houses. David is standing on the front porch, recording in his notebook. I'm not sure what should occur at 3:00 p.m. Have no idea why I am unable to take off in your car. Now it is 2:59. I'm gripping the doorknob. Every aspect of who I am yells at me to flee. Yet I know I'll enter that mansion, because perhaps David is correct. Houses may recall. Perhaps those memories come back in October, turn into reality. Additionally, regardless of what transpired in all those other homes, although another October is on the horizon. Just now, the time changed to 3:00 p.m.